Jan, could you help him with his mic quick? Otherwise, I will never hear anybody. The little green light on?
Yeah, the green light's on.
No, it's more on.
What'd you call me?
It's brighter now.
Can you hear me, Andy? Andy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can hear me, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have the meeting started now. I'm trying to, oh, I'm in the wrong spot here, I'm sorry. Okay. Got an agenda, any additions or changes by anybody here? Seeing none, I guess we'll have a vote to approve that if there's someone who wants to make a
Lambert, so
motion.
moved.
Motion by Lambert,
Second.
second by Doug Stenglein, right?
Stenberg.
Stenberg, I don't know why I get that, okay, sorry
right.
Doug,
I've been called worse.
I'm thinking of Tiffany Stenglein from her council, okay. Motion and a second, any further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Approval of stacked meeting minutes from June 14th, 2021.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have a subnote here on introducing our new MnDOT Office of Transit and Active Transportation Project Manager, Tori Hunkus. I'm not sure if we can squeeze it in between the agenda and the minutes or not. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, we can do that here right after the, we have that on the agenda. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, so will you have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make motion to approve minutes.
Lambert, second.
Okay, motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the motion carries. Okay, we got the contractor transition update. I think you would take that, Mr. Stone?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Lambert. Could we introduce Tori?
Oh,
before-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what your request was? To move it up? I didn't-
Yes, sir.
I got this thing talking in my ear here, so I'm sorry. Yes, let's introduce our new transit, what's the title here again? The transit,
Program manager? Project manager.
project manager.
Project, okay.
And your name is Tori
Hunkus.
Hunkus. Nice to meet you. Anything you'd like to share with us?
I'm just excited to be here. I'm new to transit, so bear with me, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you guys.
Well, I hope you can bear with us. Nice of you to be here. Thank you. Okay, I think we're on the contractor transition update. Andy, you want to help us with that one?
Yes, we've been with Blue Sky Transit now for 6 weeks, and I wanted some interaction between us as staff and you guys as committee and Tom here, Tom Tomke. I'll introduce him and I'll let him share what he'd like, and maybe we have questions for him, and I'm ready to chime in if you want to allow me to. But yeah, Tom, if you stand in front of the mic, I'll be able to hear you.
Okay, can you
Hi,
hear me,
how are
Andy?
you?
Hi, good afternoon. So like Andy said, he was close, Tom Temke. And so I've got a difficult German name where the H and the O is silent. And there are Tomkes, though, with the same spelling, which confuses people further because they know Tomkes and come from a long line of, there's a large family involved. I'm one of 15 children, so there's a lot of us. Lucky for you, it's down more in the Twin Cities, not up here bothering you all. Anyway, so just a little bit about my background. So I'm the acting general manager right now for Blue Sky Transit, and I was brought on to basically get this up and running on kind of a short timeline. I worked previously with Jefferson Lines, wasn't recently, and things just kind of aligned nicely where this was a good opportunity for me. So I started like the last week of July and had a quick ramp up myself to get this up and running. I've got 31 years, and I realized October 12th will be 31 years I've been in the bus transportation industry. I started driving a school bus when I was a student at the University of Minnesota, and so it's been my lifelong career. And anyway, and so I've always been a real advocate of transit, and I've got a lot of involvement. Ride the bus and trains in Minneapolis, and I actually live in South Minneapolis, and this is a beautiful time of year to be commuting to Brainerd, I can tell you. And everyone's telling me if I spend any more time here, I'm going to move here, and that just might happen. Just have to convince my wife. But anyway, so just to let you know a little bit about what my priorities have been. So the first thing was with, a short timeline here, I really wanted stability and consistency coming into this. So August 1st, or August 2nd as it was, we don't see any drop off in performance. We provide the service, and so we really put a high focus on hiring all the employees, just keeping everything as stable as we can so we don't come in and break things, upset the apple cart. And I think we've succeeded at that in coming in really, and so I've said I'm not going to make big changes. We're going to come in. We did give the employees a nice hourly raise, and really trying to treat the employees fairly, and an instance of that is we're paying their COBRA through the end of the year. We'll have our new benefits package available to them starting January 1st, and just really trying to work with the employees, see what their needs are, how we can help them be successful in their jobs, knowing that, happy employees provide better customer service than unhappy employees. And so I've been just the person on the ground here really trying to help shepherd them through this. And so that's been a big focus of mine, is just finding out, getting to know the employees, getting to know their needs, and how we can really serve them so they can provide great service to the city. So now moving forward, now that I've got a little time here observing what's going on, shifted my focus. We'll keep the stability and consistency. We're not going to upset the apple cart, but I'm focusing more on the maintenance of the buses, making sure we're providing really good preventative maintenance, because what we're seeing right now, it's a little bit of a break fix model where there was some things kind of fell off towards the end, I think. And so we're just trying to recover from that and really get the buses in peak running condition. And that's all through planned preventative maintenance versus reactionary fixing broken parts. And so I think we're making good progress on that, and just having that. And then the other piece of that is, real quality training for both the dispatchers and the drivers. The dispatchers in just quality, accurate work, because that's what the drivers are dependent on, is making sure whatever is in that computer that comes to the tablet is accurate, and that they can count on that. And so I've been working with the dispatchers and closely with Crystal and Andy to make sure we're doing things the way we want to be doing them, that works for everything, works for the reporting back to MnDOT and everything like that. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and we're really trying to make sure we've got accurate information going in, and then we can really have high expectations of the dispatchers when we've trained them properly, high expectations of the drivers when we've trained them properly. We've already had several training sessions with the drivers, and one of the things they really like, we feed them. They're just shocked that they get fed at these meetings, and that's something if we're going to bring you in for a meeting, we're going to feed you. And so, but anyway, and we've got scheduled the next few weeks, we'll be doing ADA training with all the drivers and just really improve their knowledge again, so they can just provide exceptional service to the clientele. And I think, I'm excited. I hope you can tell I'm passionate about this. I'm excited. I always talk about, I really dislike it if a driver says, I'm just a bus driver. And because what I look at, we're not just bringing people from point A to point B, we're providing people access to opportunity, regardless of whether it's a school child, an elderly person, a sheltered workshop with productive alternatives, or whoever it is we're serving, we're providing access to opportunity. And if we look at that higher calling, it elevates the job and our mission, and that's what I'm trying to bring forth with the drivers and the staff. There's more to this than just bringing someone from point A to B, and I hope you see that over time here, that attitude permeate our operation. And so I don't know if there's anything else.
Does anybody have any questions for, just correct, tell me this pronunciation again of your name?
It's Temke.
Temke, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
My gadget here says, like, Andy, just uses the phonetical, so.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
Temke.
Yeah, Siri messes it up,
does anybody have any
Alexa messes it up.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Temke? Yes,
Mr. Chair, I
yes.
guess, thank you for what you're doing. Am I on?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just, have you seen any things that kind of catch your attention that we need to improve on, or is that something Andy you're going to address, Andy? Can you hear me?
Barely.
And
This is
am I-
my bad ear, I'm sorry, I should sit this way.
No, I just wondering if there is anything that in this 6 weeks that we can learn from what you experienced.
Yeah, I think I can address it, and then so did you hear her question? If there's anything in the 6 weeks that, on the city side, or the city and county side. And so just my observation, and it's been, Andy and Crystal and I have talked about it, is I think over the last 3 years in particular, Andy and Crystal have gotten to be more involved with the day-to-day operations than they should be. And that's our job. And so, and I think we've talked about that right now. They have every right to be looking at everything and everything like that, and always will. But it should be more of an oversight thing versus, our dispatcher going to them. And there's something about the proximity of our office down there. But I'm really trying to, break that pattern and have our dispatchers be well-trained, know what they're supposed to be doing, so it's not a constant, so Andy and Crystal can focus on their jobs, which is not running the day-to-day buses. And obviously, they're a great resource and everything like that. But that's just one of the things, and it's happened, this is where we are. But I think over time, and a lot of what I see this is just confidence building. That you see what we're about over time, and people trust us, that it's not just gonna come because I tell you to trust us. We'll show it through our actions. You'll see our work and say, yeah, they know what they're doing. We can trust them with this, because it's a lot of money. It's an important service, and you can't just let it slide. So,
Anything else, Jen?
No, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, this is Tad. I've got a
Yep.
question or a comment. So, Tad Erickson, I appreciate your comments too, as you said, your comments about the phrase "just a driver" too. I think that's encouraging to hear you say that. But I like your approach when you talked about coming in and establishing the stability and consistency. But beyond that, like once that's established, and maybe you've already touched on it with your comments to the last question, but I guess what are the things you're excited about, maybe beyond that
Yeah.
stability and.
yeah. So, and just, unfortunately, as we know, everything comes down to money eventually with government. And one of the things I look at is, I'd really like to see us increase ridership. And I know the way we increase ridership, though, is providing a quality service. And it makes me sad to think about a passenger who rides once is maybe treated rudely, doesn't feel important or valued, doesn't have a good experience with the service, and just doesn't ride again. Or someone calls to set up a ride and doesn't get the responsiveness they need. And so, and that's where I talk about, this customer service training we're doing, and that's where I think we can really change things, is improving ridership. And COVID, we all took a hit with that, so now it's again, getting people to try the service and then come back again. And that's one of the advantages, I think, of taking this approach of really making it a friendlier service, I think, and more accessible. And that's on the side of, that's us. That's because we answer the phones, we're the face out on the street. And so I do see that as a really important thing that over time, we build on, and one of the results of what we're trying to do here is to improve ridership, increase ridership, and get people to say, hey, have you tried the public transit service? It's great. That's the way to go. That's how I always go to Walmart. That's how I go to the dollar store. That's how I go to my doctor appointment.
Anything else, Ted?
Thank you.
Hey, Mary, anything? No. Okay. Doug?
You're good.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions. You said the training, have you been involved since the start regarding all the training? And did you have just an approximate number of hours you've done so far? I mean, just,
Yeah, so right now, I'd say we're about 10 hours of training. So I actually, the first training we did was August 17th.
Okay.
And then we've done a couple since then, and yeah.
okay, so about 10, and you say you provide food, they get paid for their time.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a funny thing too, though, because, I fed them, and then at the end, one of the drivers says, and do we get paid for this? Well, of course you get paid
Right,
for this,
okay,
yes.
yeah,
And so,
okay.
yeah.
And then, let's see, I just had, okay, so do you have kind of an open door policy? Because one thing I've learned is there's sometimes, drivers out there doing the job and dispatchers hearing, knowing what's going on. I mean, if there's improvements or there's problems, do you listen? Do you take that, and try to bring those back maybe to Andy if you had a policy suggestion or something, would that be something we could look for from you?
Yes.
Hearing that from drivers and.
Yes, yeah. And right now, and I've said this too, I've said it with the drivers and everyone, this has been, the last 6 weeks has been me learning, and now it is. Now I'm starting to see, okay, and now, because I've heard a lot from, Andy and Crystal, from the dispatchers, from the drivers, but I didn't always have context for it. Now those things are starting to come together in my mind. I understand now. I remember someone telling me this thing, on September 3rd. So yes, I think and I don't have anything right this minute, to say, hey, have you guys thought about this policy change? But I'm very open to that, and I like the ideas that come in from the people doing the job. Yeah.
Well, one thing I liked is that you, I think it's important too, because, make sure, an unhappy employee is gonna find other work, and the last thing he need is a lot of turnover, especially when you have the training and everything to do. But do you pay overtime for the drivers?
We do not, and so we did give them a raise, and the reality is we want to give people. We talk about the proverbial work-life balance. And so what we're really trying to do, we gave them a raise so they can have a livable wage at 40 hours a week. And so then my goal is to not have them working overtime, and so they can have a home life too. They're not. And so, we did, and so our parent company operates under a federal, they're exempt from paying overtime for all employees. And so, under a federal DOT. But anyway, no, we don't pay overtime, but with the raise, they are coming out better than they would have, and we're managing their hours.
Okay, and then I think there's sometimes there's different shifts. Some drivers are working later, some are earlier. Does that get spread around pretty equally, would you say, as far as the scheduling?
And so that's something, again, I've taken over the scheduling myself. It had been something the dispatchers were doing until a week ago. Right. I've just started doing the scheduling myself just because of concerns about fairness of the scheduling. And so I start with the premise, it's difficult what everyone's idea of fairness is. And so one of the things, I believe in honoring seniority of someone who's coming in and doing a good job. If someone's been here 25 years and is doing a terrible job, I don't believe in honoring seniority for that, if this makes sense. Okay. And so one of the things that, and I don't know if you've heard from drivers or anything like that, but there are a couple drivers are concerned about the fairness of the scheduling. Okay. And so there's some drivers who've been here for 14 years, doing the same run and doing a good job of it. I'm not going to upset the apple cart. I'm going to keep them on that. And so then it is trying to, and so I've got right now a driver who likes doing the late run. He just does it 4 days a week. And then we've got 1 day to rotate around other people. The morning there's 2 people who want the early morning.
Okay.
I'm putting them on it. And so so as far as the early and late, it's right now, it's people have expressed to me they want that.
Okay.
And then right now, because we're down 1 run from COVID, we have more shifts, or less shifts available than drivers want. And so I'm just kind of tried to spread that around. They're not all getting as many hours as they want right now because they don't exist.
I assume you'll be staying the whole meeting? So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have anything else? Okay. I appreciate it
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
Yes. Sounds
Yeah,
very
I just
good.
want, again, I hope you can see, I'm excited to be a part of this. Oh, and the one thing I didn't tell you, so part of my charge was to hire a manager. And so I've hired the manager. She starts October 4th. I will be staying close to this. So the plan is, so she starts October 4th. At least through November, I will still be here. Right now, I'm here 3 days a week. I will be here 3 days a week supporting the manager. And then gradually I'll be pulling back, but I will still stay engaged and
Is
will
that
be her
person
direct
is that person
supervisor.
from the area?
Yes,
Great,
yes,
okay.
yep. She's from Brainerd and has about 2 years of experience in school bus. Before that, some years of experience with trucking. And she has good ADA knowledge. And so a lot of her skills will come together and really nicely for this. So,
Okay. Andy, anything from you on this?
Yeah, could you just stay there a second, Tom? Could you please touch on, you're the general manager and you're finally doing all of these pieces that were hit and miss before and got put in somebody's lap, and everybody trusted me to make a decision. That trust is slowly shifting to you and get in front of it instead of, like you said, reactionary. But if you could paint a little bigger picture, like you talked about the drivers and the maintenance, talk about your shop, talk about where you see yourself in a year.
okay, as a company, yeah. Okay, yeah, so Blue Sky Transit, we don't want to stop here. We're looking, so we've signed a 3-year lease at the Northern Pacific Center. We've been doing a lot of renovations there. It seriously looked abandoned when I walked in there the first time. We've spruced it up, done a lot of renovations, and just making a more pleasant place for the drivers to be. We're looking to grow in the Brainerd Lakes area as a company, and we see opportunity here. And so that's, we want to be the long-term contractor for the Brainerd Crow Wing County Transit, but also looking for other opportunities in the area. And so initially it is making sure we're focused and really getting this up and running. But once we've got this going, once that manager's she knows what she's doing and everything like that, then it will go into, and part of my role will probably be developing new opportunities here in the area. And so we really want to be, we're going to invest in this community. We see it's a great place to be, and we see opportunity here. And so we're looking to invest in the community. Long term, again, it may be, a different facility. It may be, we're open to a lot of different options. I would love for us to get our own maintenance shop here. Right now, we're too dependent on outside vendors, and we don't have a maintenance facility
Do you
here.
foresee it tying together with the regular Jefferson Lines bus?
At some point, I could foresee that, yeah. Right now, the difficulty with the Jefferson lines coming into Brainerd, it's 5 buses come in basically between 2 and 3 p.m. It's a 1-hour shot here, and that was purposeful to bring all 5 of those buses together at the same time period so the passengers can transfer to other buses. And so just that 1-hour time frame in the city of Brainerd doesn't open up a lot of other options, because that's what I was thinking about, do we open up a depot here for Jefferson lines? But there's really not right now, but I could see in the future there being something there.
Okay.
Yeah. And that this could be a maintenance hub for Jefferson, or there's a lot of opportunities, and we're open to all of them. Just seeing where things land, but I think we're very open to expanding in this area.
Was there anything else, Andy, you wanted them to
No, I do like to report back though, and I know 3 years ago when our other contractor came in, we were whittling away at stuff slowly. You're miles ahead, and I truly appreciate it. I mean, it's a contractual obligation, number one. But you have a goal, you have a focus, you're how can I say this correctly? You're a consultant charged with the transition?
Yes.
Yes, so you are here on Jefferson's behalf to try to understand this, get it running, contract compliance, do what we're supposed to do, policies, people, shop, find your replacement, and be able to walk away from the machine running smoothly.
Right.
Yeah, and your time frame is 6 months. It's like, wow.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
and
thank-
full disclosure, I'm technically a consultant to Blue Sky Transit, but it's fully invested.
Well, we like full disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Andy, then I guess we'll move on to item B under this as update from city staff. Thank you very much.
I think Tom hit most of the high points. Updates on the transition. Out of the chute, we were concerned about people. Everybody stayed on board. Short term, there's adjustments and corrections. Long term, it might look different, but we take it a day at a time. We had discussed the possibility of parking the buses at the city garage like we did prior with our other contractor, and they were able to negotiate acceptable terms with their NP location. Tom is slowly being trusted by not only the dispatchers and the drivers, but some customers. And we have a great rapport. We talk, if not on a daily basis, at least every other day. And there's very few items that I have brought to Tom saying this needs to be addressed. And either it's addressed immediately or it's put into a plan to be addressed on a schedule. So in other words, he has his priorities to make this thing work, and I'm accepting of that because I've seen that his priorities are being accomplished, if that makes sense.
Say, can I ask, when the new person comes on board and you spend time with that individual and hopefully get a good break-in time, and if Andy is having any difficulty working with that person or feels there's not, say, the adequate, maybe the performance of that individual, does he have a line of communication with somebody that would be that person's superior?
Yes, and so
Okay.
for the foreseeable future, I will be the direct supervisor.
Okay.
And that's why I'm the general manager and we're hiring a manager, and it is just for that reason.
Okay.
And so, the president of Jefferson Lines, our basically our parent company, has asked, he said, well, are you going to stay? And I said, as long as you need me, I'll be here. And so the idea will be, I'm likely to, even in 6 months, be here still 1 day a week.
Okay.
And so that, yes, absolutely, I will be her direct supervisor
That's-
and until we transition, and
Okay,
then they will have a supervisor.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yep. Andy, do you have any more updates then or anything like that?
No, Tori, do you have any questions of him? This is, I don't know if you've dealt with transit agencies, 5311s that have a third-party contractor providing the service. You're good?
I haven't yet, but I'm not thinking of anything off the top of my head. But thank you.
Okay. Are we good? Moving on? Okay, that would be our request from our Finance Committee Chairman, Mr. Gabe Johnson. Wanted us to do some, get some, how are we gonna do our revenues to meet the increase in the cost of the recent contract approved here that Jefferson Line, or Blue Sky has. So I guess this is kind of like a brainstorming thing. I've been thinking about this, I think, since the first day I got on this committee in many respects. So, Andy, would you like to start us out on this and give us your thoughts?
Yeah, if we go back to Paul's little graph on the wall when we did the summary of the two proposals. At the time when you were looking at the proposals, it was approximately, and I'm going to ballpark this, $1.2 million over 3 years, or approximately $400,000 per year. We are currently at a different funding than normal because of COVID. And under normal circumstances, we don't have to look at that entire piece, but we still have to make up some differences. Right now, today, going into September, we are averaging finally 200 rides a day. There's my little graph. That is a milestone considering where we were. If you pull up the other graph, April of a year ago, we were down in the 50s. The trust and confidence in our system is still there. We lost a lot of our choice riders. Choice meaning somebody had a car in the garage, or they had a relative, a son or daughter that would give them a ride. And with the fear of the pandemic, they felt safer not riding public transit. I think we're finally breaking through that. And bottom line, we need our rides back. And part of this brainstorming is how do we get those rides? Like even with Tom, we were talking that, people call and say, well, how do I get to Bemidji? And we say, well, call Jefferson Lines. When people call Jefferson Lines for a ride out of Brainerd and they say, well, how do I get to your bus? Are they telling the customer to call us? Just little things like that make a huge difference in our day-to-day and week-by-week numbers. Treating, like Tom said, treating people with some respect and courtesy and providing what they need. Everybody needs a ride, but everybody needs something else in addition to that. Some might need assistance getting on a lift. Somebody might need comfort that they're going to get there on time. Somebody might need extra assurances that I'm a safe driver. I'm not hitting curbs when I go around the corner. Somebody calls and says, do you have service on Saturday? And we simply say no and don't explore the opportunity. That person's never going to call us back again. So it's a lot of little pieces that I'm working on to try to get the done. Yes, I can go, I've talked to CLC group of students, right? Are any of them riding? Maybe one out of the group I spoke to. I can continue to do those things, but I think the biggest impact is our daily one-on-one. It's back to that old philosophy that bad news travels very fast. If I have a good experience, am I going to share it with anybody? Well, maybe one person. If I have a bad experience, man, it's going to be on Facebook and Twitter and everything else. We need to reduce those bad experiences to zero, however we can, to try to help with our rides. Beyond getting our rides back, that's where I would like some type of a discussion.
Well, let's do that.
Pardon?
Let's do that. Yeah. I mean, I'm just, I think we need to increase ridership. Let's have that conversation. I'm just ready to open it up for people that have ideas and what they've thought of in the past. I think of you know, what do we do to promote the bus? Can we put an advertising on the side of the bus to promote our bus? We don't do that. That costs money, right? Do we have a marketing budget? And
Yes, we do have a marketing budget, and yes, we contract with transit advertising to put ads on the side of the bus, but
Right.
there's no reason we couldn't hire them to put our ad on the side of the bus.
get something creative that's, you know, people look
Great
at.
idea. We're gonna jot down a whole bunch of ideas here. One of the things I would like to ask permission, and I've never asked this before, is what about printing like one free ride and say, look, you've never ridden the bus, here, try it. Yes, we're losing one fare,
Yep.
but if it's a new rider and they don't have a bad experience, they might come back.
Well, yeah, that's, you say come back in the sense that it may have been somebody who rode in the past. Now, there's two levels here. We're looking at getting people that have ridden and aren't coming back, and then new riders. People have never ridden, so that would accomplish both, actually. I mean, I don't know if you see that, right?
Andy was talking about for those that have never rode a bus, the
Well,
bus.
well, maybe they'll come back, and it implies that they would, come back and ride again, you
Yeah,
mean?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I took that and mean, they'll come back to ride that they haven't, okay. continue.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, both
specifically
ways then,
referring
sure.
to new riders, somebody has
Okay.
trepidations about riding public transit.
Okay.
And
Yep.
say, you know, short of me saying, grab their hand and say, come on with me, let's take a ride.
So when you ask for permission, do we have to give you approval to do that? And then just
Well,
maybe
I'd
go-
look,
maybe how do we go about, what's the process in getting that out there?
I don't,
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may I just-
go ahead.
I would rather have us just throw these ideas out
Mm-hmm.
and then look at them and prioritize them that way versus then trying to make it just, you know,
Sure.
right now. So that's what I would like to see us do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing, offering some sort of free ride to, I don't know how we get to that point, but yeah, that's
Mr. Chair?
yes.
So this is Tad. I guess to that point, so my position at Region 5, my coworker, Matt Calrus, who many of you know, he actually just applied for an AARP grant to do just that, and it offers like free gym memberships. I think there's a ride component. So there might be an opportunity to do something similar or just what you're saying through that. And I know he's looking to get communities to kind of participate in that. So I can get you his contact information. I think but I can share some of that. But it's aimed at increasing ridership, and particularly for those who have been shut in or locked in due to COVID, and re-entering, getting people into gyms and kind of getting people out moving again.
How about if we tried something like Pequot does, their one day a week, the grocery store pays for their ride to people who want to get there and return home? Is that something we could consider? I don't know if you all are familiar with that or not.
Well, I think we could put it on the list.
Yep.
I mean, just put it on the list.
Sure. Are many of us familiar with that? That Pequot's I forget the name of it, or it's Pine River, I'm sorry.
Pine River.
Pine River,
Yeah.
yes. So, and then,
Mr. Chair.
yes,
I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, at least from my perspective. I'd like to have an estimate based on current ridership of the revenue we can expect by the end of this year. You've identified that there appear to be an increase in ridership, but we haven't had a revenue report for a long time. And I think I've asked for it every time I've been here. And before we start throwing out ideas that may or may not work, we need to know a revenue projection for the end of this year. How much of our reserves are we going to be using if the government was not picking up the whole tab? I think that's what the Personnel and Finance Chairman is interested in, because free money only lasts so long. And of course, most of us know it's not free anyway. But I would like to see some revenue projection here. I think we need to get a little bit back on track. I see further down the agenda, you had something on ridership growth information, revenue growth information, 5-year trend, blah, blah. I'd like some facts before we jump into all of this pie in the sky.
Mr.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, this is Jan. I guess, kind of, based on this email that we received from, or that or Andy received, I guess I really would like to see if, in worst-case scenario, if transit had to be supported by a levy, would we be supported by the city? Would the council support us in the worst-case scenario? I don't think it's gonna happen, but how committed is the city council to keep public transit here?
Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's really the question. The city there was an opportunity to take a lesser fare, or a lesser cost to the city. The finance chairman did not vote for this one, as you probably are aware. I don't believe that at this point, Tad may disagree, but I don't believe that there's a lot of feeling on the council to increase the levy. Nor do I think they should. I think if it can be self-supporting, that's exactly what it should be.
That's not, Mr. Chair, that's
Yep.
not what my statement was. My statement was, is there enough support that we keep a public transit in our city
by the council.
by the council?
Yes, yes.
That is my statement.
Yep, I understood
And
that.
that is what I think we need to know, and maybe Tad or somebody could say, but I would like to know if we have to raise the fare and we have pushback, is the council gonna be willing to support us? You know, I guess that's what I want to know.
That's a fair question. I mean, we had a referendum years ago, Mary, you're very familiar with that the taxpayers wanted a bus, and they asked they would accept a levy. Now, do we want to go back to the referendum and see if they still want a bus? I don't know. I guess we could do that. What's an amount that the city council would approve to levy the taxpayers? That I don't know. Would it be, so that's what we want to find out.
Is that your answer?
Well.
I mean, is that your answer?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is my answer, Mary, because we have a bus, it costs money. How do you pay for it if we don't have the ridership? Do we dissolve the bus, Mary? Is that what you want to do?
I think that I would rather do without it.
Okay,
Then
then
raise
that's
the
what we,
levy.
that's what we want to
That's
find out
right.
from the council.
I'm an old
That's-
lady attempting
Yep.
to live in my own house.
Yeah.
I don't ride the bus. There are other options. There may be, we aren't even talking other options. This whole thing has broken down to a love fest with the bus company you chose. There's no talk here that I've heard so far about looking at facts, like what is our ridership? What is our revenue? How much if the state and feds don't make it up? Are we going to have to take from our reserves? How much of a raise could be absorbed? What other options are there? I think in this day and age, there are lots of other options. I'm even thinking that if the state may come to this eventually, they aren't there yet, as far as I know.
Well,
But I'm speaking.
yes, I know you are,
Mr.
Mary, and I'm the
Chair.
chairman, and I'm
Please,
asking you that,
please, I'm
yes,
trying to
okay.
say,
Yeah,
how
well, I'm
about
asking you.
something like the Uber, or Uber, whatever they call that. I don't know what we have in this town, I don't think we have that. But I know it's enormously popular in the areas where, maybe that's a better option, because it's more pinpointed toward those who want to use it.
Yeah, okay,
Rather than
okay,
running
okay.
around and around with no
Well,
danger.
That's an opinion, Mary, I appreciate that, I
Well,
really do.
That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, and we're trying to come up with ideas for, trying to figure out what are we gonna do to come up with ways to figure out how do we pay for the bus if our ridership doesn't cover it. So that's what the topic was here, to talk about what are our thoughts on how do we increase ridership, because that's how we pay for the bus, other than levying taxpayers, is that correct? I think it is.
Mr. Chair, this is Jan again.
Yes, I know it's Jan. You're right here?
I'm right here.
Yes.
But no, the reason I brought it up is because it was in our second paragraph, it had discussed the levy.
Yep.
And I guess, this is coming from the personnel finance. I guess what my point is, do we have the support? That's the main thing. Do we have the support for the city to go ahead and come up with these recommendations, even though it might be that we have to raise well, I'll just make it simple. Do we have the support from the city to continue to have a public transit in our community? I personally am all for it, but that is the one thing that I think we need to do. And the other thing is that I like what Tom is saying, we need to bring back the trust of the community, the trust of city staff, that our transit service is efficient, treats us with respect. We have not had that for a few years. And that is how you're gonna increase our ridership.
I'm all in favor, of doing whatever we need to do. I don't recall ever a time where we've seen Crow Wing County or the city of Brainerd do anything at all to promote our bus service. Anything. I don't see it mentioned at council meetings. I don't see it talked about in any discussion regarding how do we improve the quality of life in our city. Maybe I missed it. I don't see it involved in the Highway 210 reconstruction. I see nothing about our transit service at all regarding that project.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Tad.
Yeah, so Tad, I just wanted to make a couple comments. I think we've got a couple different conversations going on.
Yes, we do. And I wanted to stick on the topic of what are we gonna tell our finance committee chairman?
And that's along the lines of what I was gonna say, so we've got this letter that was submitted, so we've been asked to, brainstorm about ways to increase ridership.
Right.
And so I think we do need to stay focused on responding to that question. To Ms. Cope's point about projections, about ridership, I think that's a fair point. Is that something that staff could put together? We've talked about ridership and how ridership has recovered to approaching pre-COVID levels. So I think there has been some talk about ridership. Now, if you add in some projections, some financial projections in that, if that's something that we could maybe provide, I think that's a good point. Maybe we could, but I do think that we do need to respond to the PNF request that we've received, and their specific question, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I'm reading it there, from the screen, can we brainstorm a plan for future revenues that will assist us in covering the additional expenses? So to me, and that's where we were kind of going, is
Yes.
brainstorming. I'm not saying we're going to use all these ideas, but throw everything on the wall and we can kind of whittle it down from there. Ms. Lambert, I think you were kind of saying that before we start whittling these ideas down, just get all the ideas on the table. So I think there's a way, if we could, yes, we can get some financial projections. That's a good question. And then to Jan's point, let's respond to the question at hand about brainstorming. And also, Ms. Lambert, to your point about the council. So the council, we did vote to go with the higher cost vendor, and as has been noted, the non-local, which was not without controversy. So as an indicator of willingness to invest in transit, I think that, to me, that speaks volumes. But I guess my suggestion would be that we narrow the focus of the conversation to responding to the PNF.
Well, if I was looking at something for the finance committee chair and the entire council, we can come up with several ideas on how to increase ridership. Will it work? We don't know until we try something. So brainstorming is good. Implementing the ideas is another project. So all these different things, we can throw a dozen things out there, and if we don't do any of them, what's the point of doing this? So we have to look at this in a way that if we're gonna have these ideas, we have to focus in on which ones we wanna begin with, if any, and then, go from there. Mary, I'm all on board about the additional cost and going with the higher cost, proposal or RFP. Except the service is a key element in that particular proposal. If we get a better service, that is one thing that's going to attract riders. The negative comments, I live at a place where over the years, the first thing you hear is, oh, it's dial a wait. It's dial a wait. What does that do? It's all negative. People, I don't want to ride that if I got to wait. Of course you're going to wait when you ride public transit. It's part of riding public transit. So we got to get away from a stigma related to what may have happened to people in the past, and you promote it through, there's all kinds of marketing things we could do. They all cost money. I think we need to, identify what we can and can't afford. I don't see us going on television commercials or anything like that. It's just, what can we send out as mailers, perhaps? Is that something we've thought about? Can you put that down as an idea? Some sort of mailer to different types of locations around the area, like we kind of did with the Saturday service? We had flyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be something.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Is this a decision that we have to make today?
no,
Okay, because then I'm gonna
it's brainstorming.
brainstorm.
Right.
Okay, then the other thing too is, can we get some of the information on surveys that have been put out, like on, regarding public transit? There was surveys that we've done, I know in the a few years when I was on the council, we did that. Is there a way we can get that information so we can have it as a resource for us too?
Can you be more specific about?
Yeah, there's surveys that occur at the state level for their update of the 20-year transit plan. There's surveys at Region 5 for the local human services coordination, transportation.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Okay. But Region 5 is currently one of the things we're working on through is it through the RTCC?
It's technically not, but it's related. But it's
You want to talk to that about a survey that's going out right now?
sure.
Okay.
So this is every 5 years the MnDOT asks the 5311s to put together a 5-year plan, and it's called the Local Human Service Transit Coordination Plan. That's quite the acronym, and so that's the process. They're working with Region 5 now to really inventory the different programs and put together a plan. And as a part of this process, there's a survey, and so we're going to be rolling that survey out, and I'd be willing to share that survey with the group too, or with you, Andy, and you can kick it out to all of us. But and I don't know if that survey is going to get to what we're looking at, but that's another aspect too. But I guess, Mr. Chair, I also wanted to add too, Mary, your comments is also addressed in that letter too. So it says, at the TAC meeting, this request that we've been given, Financial Chair Gabe Johnson would like us to run some yearly financial projections. And that's getting to what you so I think we can tie a lot of this together in responding to this letter, putting projections, and then also coming up with brainstorming about how to, increase ridership to meet that cost. And I see you're jumping at the bit. One last thing I wanted to say about it too is, perhaps Mr. Temke could weigh in too, not necessarily now, but as we move forward in this. The question that I had was, beyond coming in the 6 month, creating stability, what would you like to see is if beyond that? And his response was increasing ridership through education, customer service. I mean, and to me, as we're brainstorming, those are essentially the same responses. So with your expertise, we might be spinning our wheels you might have some fantastic recommendations. So I think it's good exercise for us to brainstorm, but also asking staff and our new consultants to provide some ideas, and, you know, maybe we come up with some really good ideas to, you know, increase ridership and
Oh, Andy, is,
offset that cost.
with our database, is it possible, or is it, well, I should say, I'm guessing it's possible, but is it likely, or maybe possible is the best word, to go through and see individuals who maybe used to be regular riders, still live in the area? A phone call, I think, might suffice in doing that. Just reach out. If you had, I mean, if somebody rode once a week, that's say 2 rides a week, and you multiply that, it's pretty easy. There's 100 rides a year. If we've lost ridership like that, is that something you could do with perhaps the database we have?
That's definitely something we should look at. I know in the past I've said I watch the obituaries.
Yes.
So there are people that will never ride the bus again. But since COVID, you know, some of these people, like college kids, we'll never be able to contact them. They've moved on. But residents that used to ride the bus and don't, hopefully we have a phone number in our system.
Yeah.
But yes, let me look into that. That's actually a great idea.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I should also point out that this is a brainstorm
Yeah.
for Brainerd. You know, part of my swelling is I deal with the county and Pine River, and, you know, the city funds 5 buses, and we're still running only 4. So we are watching the expenses on the one hand. As the ridership gets up and we start to put pressure on the system, that's when that 5th bus will come into play. But there's so many little pieces that can affect this picture. Like, we are talking about finally optimizing on Route Match, because we have a partner who's willing to go the extra mile with us to make it happen. And that'll just increase efficiencies on the street and allow us to actually get more rides per bus per day. So I'm hoping we don't have to add that 5th bus for a long time, Tom, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't think we will. I think just based on that, if we optimize the current buses.
I've been talking with Tim Hool at the county. You know, they've got a bus that runs Crosby, a bus that runs Pequot, and then they've got this county bus thing that runs around 3 days a week. And they're thinking about removing expense because you can't increase fares beyond a certain rate. You know, you'll lose rides. So it's going to be a combination of things. It's kind of like their increased cost came with bus insurance. Well, we, as a city, we save $26,000 a year now because we're not insuring the buses. That comes right off the top. So, I mean, it's all these little things. If you ask me individually as your transit coordinator, is this a task we can accomplish? Absolutely. But do I have all the pieces? No, I'm looking for any help, you know, because all these little things add up.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
4 o'clock, I don't know if there's time for a good brainstorming session today.
Fair enough.
Do you want to call a special meeting? Give everybody time to think about it, or what do you think?
That's a good brainstorming idea, Mary.
I've got a
Mr.
question.
Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I
Jan.
would like, and Ted, help me out, because I can't remember. Doesn't our comp plan have a section on public transit? I would,
On mobility,
mobility.
which includes,
I would really like to see that come to the commission. I think, to the commission, the mobility section of the comp plan. I think it would give us an idea what the community wants. I mean, that's basically what that is. It'd be nice to have as a resource.
Yep.
And then along with what Mary's requesting and all of that, if we could have all of that in front of us before we have our special meeting would be great.
And I would encourage anybody, if you got ask other people. You've got ideas, send them in, we can talk about them. Andy, what, as we sit here right now, is there, maybe perhaps next month, we think of a special, I don't even call it a special meeting, just another meeting, more of a brainstorming type focus, exclusively? Does that sound like something we could put together for everybody here?
Absolutely. I have not read the comprehensive plan in a while, and I hate to put Crystal on the spot, but she went through it recently, and I don't know how it was developed. You said it's the community's desires?
Isn't that, because the comp plan is yeah,
I
Ted
can
was
talk.
on it, yes. Why don't you answer to, address that, please?
Yeah, I can talk about that. Mr. Chair,
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Ted.
before I do that, just one comment too. Do we have a time frame with this request from PNF? That'll kind of inform our process going forward, I think. If we have to have this done in a week, then we need to act appropriately, okay. But yeah, about the comp plan, the city hired Sourcewell to develop that comprehensive plan. And at the time, Region 5 and Sourcewell were doing those kind of jointly. So I was actually very involved in writing that plan. And we had a very aggressive community engagement process where we had surveys, open houses. We went to each ward and had opportunities for residents to share their thoughts and things in all different areas of transportation, housing, land use, transportation. In the plan, we call it mobility, but then transit's included in that. So there was a really focused aspect of community engagement in the plan. We had some community open houses. And so, yeah, there was I emphasized that there was an emphasis on community engagement, so that the planning team that put that together then kind of took what they heard, and then translated that into goals and policies that are reflected in the plan. So, and council approved it, I think, late 2019.
Well, the point is, we can include that in our discussion, correct? That's
That's what I would like, to have that information.
Right.
That chapter, just pull the chapter out and there's something in the back that prioritized some of it.
Yeah, there was an implementation section that kind of said,
Okay,
Question, if I may, Mr. Chair?
yes.
Do you want to just include that information in a response, or should we delay the response until we review the information?
I would like to, I'm hoping we'd have time to have a brainstorming, like Mary and Jeff said, we can have it next month, and then present it all with all this other information.
Well,
I-
and I only suggested next month to make sure you and Crystal and whomever else may have an opportunity to go through, maybe kind of double check with other transit communities to see what they have regarding some of these ideas that we've thrown out there, and maybe look at your database and look at the comp plan, see how it applies. Those types of things. If that much time is necessary, I mean, I'm not locked into doing it next month. We could do it in 2 weeks, but I'd rather give you more time than less, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think that's good information to help support or guide our decisions.
Yep.
Or our response in this case. But again, what are they asking for? And I'm just reading this too. They're looking for some projections and then some ideas about
Well, I mean,
increasing ridership.
if
So
I had
don't
a
know
crystal
if we
ball, I
feel-
could make a real good projection, but I don't have a crystal ball. I think that was brought up another time, and we can project the numbers as we see them today, and there's your answer. I mean, what are we at? The numbers per day are, you said 200 we finally hit. Can we achieve that every day? Probably not, if that's a high level at this time. So if they want a number and we come in short, well, then we're gonna have to tell our finance committee chairman and the rest of the council that as we sit here today, we can't project enough revenue to sustain this with the fares. We'll have to dip into our reserve. That's life, you know? And if we, as a community, we don't want a dollar ride, then somebody makes that decision. I'm not one that's gonna make that decision, you know, so.
And I think, oh, go ahead, Doug. No, Doug wanted, he hasn't spoke at all.
The quiet man.
We don't know what our projections is because we're not there yet.
Right.
And in my opinion is that the public has probably lost confidence in the bus service, not because it's a bad bus service, it's just because of COVID. And they gotta wear a mask, and they gotta get on a bus with a bunch of other people. And so they just lost their confidence in it. And somehow or another, we gotta get out there and we gotta advertise, and we gotta let them know that it's okay. It's okay to ride the bus. It's okay to ride the bus with a mask. Somehow we gotta get the word out. We gotta advertise, advertise, and advertise. I think we need to go back to basics. And we need to get flyers out. Or down in New Ulm, our biggest daily advertising was a magnet. It was the size of a business card, and it had our logo on it with our 800 number and our local number. There were stacks of them that we had in the bus. We just stuck them on the fare box. People come on, we passed them out. We passed them out to businesses. A lot of homes in town had a magnet on the refrigerator. And we just need to get back to basics. We need to get the word out. We need to get the public's confidence back up that it's okay to ride the bus.
But, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
But we can't do projections until we know what we're at. You know, we can't, how can we do projections for fair, you know, how can we do that until we know what our revenue is, what we're bringing in, what, you know, so I guess, I think, to me, we need more information to answer the question, and I think what Doug said, you know, go back to the basics, great, but I think we need more information before we can address that question that's presented.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I can probably project that the ridership today is gonna, no matter what we do, probably go down come November, December, January, as it always does in the winter. Or, you know, or I'm sorry, it goes down in the summer, so it probably will increase, I mean.
Right.
Sorry about that. As it always does, people are outdoors more, so. So those are some things that we can look forward to as far as increasing ridership. That is a trend, correct, Andy? The ridership usually does increase with
In the wintertime.
colder months. And school starts and,
The historical seasonal trends are ridership drops in the summer because people walk and bike.
right, okay.
Unless it's a wet summer, then we'll see ridership. Key numbers for us are schools, when schools come on board, after-school activities, daycares, our riderships jumped a little bit since summer. The confidence, like the St. Francis kids, we got a bunch of them riding this year. 3 times what rode last year. Now, I don't know if that's a change in principle or if it's a change in attitude towards public service or transit.
Okay.
Or if it's a change in expense for private transport.
How about if right now we isolate a day that we can figure on meeting? What do you foresee, Andy, as maybe the time you see to kind of organize some of these ideas we've thrown out, and of course, maybe look forward to some others, hopefully. You know, maybe, you know, I don't think there's many city staff that ride the bus, but maybe some have some ideas. Could that something that go around? Maybe we could ask our administrator to just throw something out there. Maybe it could come up at our council meeting, Mr. Erickson. You could bring that forward and.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I guess, again, I'm trying to stay as laser focused as I can on responding to the letter too. And so
Yeah.
I see 2 things. 1, brainstorming about ridership, and then 2, some financial projections. So I guess,
What would you say we do for projections? I mean, that's what he's asking for.
so I was gonna ask, you know, the 2 of you, I mean, you have historical data. Are you able to kind of use that to put together some projections, or perhaps working with a consultant? I mean, we can maybe provide some input, but you've got access to that data a little bit more readily.
Or why don't we,
Mr.
if you
Can I
think it's
get an answer to the
important,
question?
if you think it's important that we send a response
Oh,
immediately.
there's a question on, I got a question on the table.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Go ahead.
Projections, in my mind, are like putting a budget together. It's your best guess. You know, our projections on riderships went out the window with COVID. Right now, looking ahead with COVID, are we gonna be post-COVID numbers in 2 months, or are we gonna have a new variant to deal with? I don't know how we project ridership. All I know is we need to actively pursue people and getting the name out. You know, even in the sesquicentennial advertising, public transit wasn't even in there. It's like, what, we provide a service in this community and nobody talks about us. I don't know how to overcome that. Everybody talks about the police, the fire, the parks, transit. What's transit?
I say we gotta get our word out.
But-
Gotta get our
but-
name out there.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I agree, I agree with, I agree, I like what Tad said. I think even though projections are hard, we need to be able to see what's historical, and I understand we have COVID, I understand that. But it's an essential department. We can still, based on, during our COVID, we can just still look and see what our ridership was at that time. So I think I personally, I need to have more resource information before I can go any further.
72,000 annual rides. Is that what you're looking for?
How many?
That's pre-COVID number, 72,000 annual trips.
I know, but if you want to take in how did COVID affect us? That's the stuff, that's the information we've got to be able to do that. So I would like to see what our revenues are, let's say from 2019 on, and have it designated what's the COVID area. And I'd like to see what the comp plan has, those are things I would like to see.
Andy?
And what some of the ideas we put down. I mean, I think we're kind of at stalemate right here.
Andy, 72,000 pre-COVID, what were our ridership in 2020? Do you have that?
No, he doesn't, he didn't hear you. He didn't hear.
The ridership was 72,000 in 2019. What was it last year?
I can pull it up if you have a minute.
Well,
That's the information I'd like to have, that's the information I'd like to have to look at before we go into,
and you know, and with all due respect to our finance committee chairman, he did vote against our recommendation, okay? So he was not in favor of paying the higher cost. Didn't matter what was said. It was too much money. Okay, I get that. He wants to see from us, okay, our projections. Okay, what if we don't have any? What's gonna happen here? I mean, we got a third-party contract for 3 years. I'm not in any timeline according to what Mr. Johnson wants. I'm sorry, but I don't have it. I can't predict what's gonna happen. Tell him that. That's what I'll tell him. I'm sorry, I don't have projections. We have to wait and see we're in a new era here, aren't we? Aren't we, folks? So we gotta figure out what we're gonna do to get ridership back with a pandemic going on. Tell me what we do. I don't know.
I thought that's why we were going to have a brainstorm.
Well, that's what we were trying to do. Yeah.
Haven't set a date yet.
Mr.
Well, I know.
Mr. Chair.
I tried to get to that. What's our date? What do you want to do here, folks? What day works for you?
Mr. Chair, maybe
Yes,
we could
Jan.
maybe we can just send on to, if Andy could pass it on to Paul or to Gabe, that say, we are working on this, we are getting some information together, ask that would like to have about at least 6 weeks before we get
I'm
back
trying to
there.
understand if we're under the direction of Mr. Gabe Johnson here. Are we? I don't think so. So if you want to move forward with a projection, tell them we don't know. That's as simple as that. Unless somebody else wants to throw something out there, I don't have a projection, and we'll get back to them when we do.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't think that would be a prudent answer.
Well, it's,
And, Mr. Chair,
I
please,
disagree with you.
please, let-
No,
well,
go
I
ahead.
hear
Fair
you,
enough.
but
It's
I
not
don't
true.
think
It's not
that would be
polite, right, Mary? Okay. It's not polite. Why don't you just say it that way? Because that's what you're trying to tell me.
No, I said it isn't prudent.
Well-
That's a different meaning altogether. I believe Mr. Johnson is chair of that committee, not only within his rights, but probably doing a very good thing to raise that issue. The city has tried to be very prudent in all of their expenditures, and I think that's reflected in the budget they're proposing. And I think what he asked is perfectly reasonable. And I think it's in the hearts and minds of a lot of people. What are you gonna do? What is your proposal? So I think we should not get our back up at Mr. Johnson, but rather, I think he should be complimented for raising it. But I think our job now would be to have this brainstorming
That's
session.
what we should focus on,
But Mr. Chair,
yes.
in my view, it needs to be broader than what has been discussed. I think we need to look at other options besides buses. They're out there. They're the trend of the future. If you're going to say the only thing that works is a bus, you might as well say we don't have email, we don't have any of the technology we have. We have to move on, and so we have to look at options. Are we stuck with this contract? I suppose we are. But we have to try to work within the confines of the money we've got. And so I'm supporting some discussion.
Yeah.
But I want it to be broader than just how are we going to raise money. I think we need to look at what we can do with the money we've got. I don't think some of those riders are ever coming back. I think the generation coming up that used to ride a bus are maybe using other options now. So I think there's all of that. And if you'd allow me, Mr. Chair, because there hasn't been a lot of time for discussion here today, I did want to ask the gentleman from
Tom?
Jefferson Lines. You alluded to something that if someone called and said, well, how do I get in touch with Jefferson Lines? They would be told. Are we dispatching then for Jefferson
I think-
Lines as well? That strikes me as totally.
No, that.
totally-
I think that was Mr. Stone who said
Andy
that.
brought that up.
That's not what was said.
Are we doing it?
No, absolutely not.
If someone asks a dispatcher for the city, how they get in touch with Jefferson Lines, are they given all of that specific information?
We give them a phone number, just like we do at the taxi, just like we do at the dog pound, just like we do at the street department. Where everybody knows Transit's number and we get really bizarre phone calls. We just give them what they're looking for and move on to the next caller.
But, Mr. Chair, Andy, when Andy brought that up, it was somebody asking how to get to Bemidji. That's what, and then you gave him get Jefferson Lines
So
number.
in effect, we are pimping for Jefferson Lines.
No.
No, we're not
No.
pimping for anybody, Mary. Let's move on here. Let's move on. Let's just move on.
Mr.
Well, we're just gonna move on here. Yes, okay. Let's
Mr.
see, our
Chair-
next item here, since we're gonna set a date for a meeting.
Mr. Chair,
This whole discussion, geez, deteriorate.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
do
Jan.
we have much for next month's meeting that we could make that a brainstorming meeting? Do we have much on our agenda for next month?
We have a couple of small policy issues to deal with, but it's nothing time sensitive. The council already approved a bus for next year, which I'm working on that grant piece right now. As far as the tax concerned, I'm hoping that Tom just keeps moving forward and we can address this stuff over the balance of the year.
Mr. Chair, I would ask if we make it for the 21st and have majority of it for, yes, please.
Motion to have it on October
21st.
21st, which is
The third Thursday,
Thursday. Is there a second? That'd be at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, and then we can have what Andy has, and then the rest would be brainstorming,
Okay,
if that's
is there a
okay.
second to have our meeting on the third Thursday in October at 3 o'clock?
I'll second.
Second by Stenberg, sorry.
That's fine.
Any further comments? Seeing
Can I
none,
make a
I'll-
comment?
Yes,
I
go
knew
ahead.
this was gonna be challenging, so I think another meeting is great.
Yep.
I didn't realize how we burned through the clock here. So that'll be great, and I'm gonna put together, Jan, you said 2019, 20, and 21, the
Right.
actual rides, so you can see pre-COVID, post-COVID, the fares we collected, and I can even include the expense piece because it's all been reported to MnDOT. I can just print off a report so you can see it.
That'd be great, and the comp
The
plan.
thing that's difficult to see through that information, I could talk about it, is the state's funding level. You know, because that's all over the board, but to Mary's concern, What if they say, we're only giving you 50% next year? Sorry, we're gonna chop some service. That's about all we can do,
Right.
you know? Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
all those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, so we got that in the minutes, and we, notice sent out. And we'll try to get through I think we kind of covered some ridership issues here. Did you want anything further on that, Andy? The graphs, did you want to go through those, or we kind of know already, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the same conversation that we're having. Yeah, move on. It's like number 5, draft a response. Well, it's gonna be, we're working on this, give us another month. So if you wanna move on to number 6, that would be great.
I don't,
Open forum.
okay, draft response. We got open forum. That's our public forum. I suspect there's nobody here for that.
You're right.
Okay, okay. Does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm
Yes.
still waiting for a revenue report.
I think that will be
I'm
coming.
waiting for several
Okay.
months now.
How about item 8? Does anybody see anything they'd like to do on that?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Lambert,
I'll second.
second by Stenberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.